what can you do to make every single reservation just be a little bit safer? Who cares what marketplace it's on? Can you reach into all the reservations of the world and just make them safer? And so in November of 2013, that's when we switched our model from a marketplace to safely.com as we know it today, where our mission, any reservation that takes place, we just want to infuse a little bit more trust into it so that that the homeowner is more comfortable, it's a friction-free experience, and it's a better and safer experience.
What's up, everybody? My name's Mike Sjogren, here with my co-host,
Emmanuel Pani.
We're part of a group of specialized real estate investors you've probably never heard of.
We didn't start with deep pockets or wealthy families, and we don't rely on 401ks, mutual funds, or traditional real estate investing.
In fact, many of us don't even own the properties that fund our freedom. If you ask the money experts out there, they'd say what we do is impossible, yet it's happening every single day.
It's happening through a new niche called short-term rentals.
We are Short-Term Rental Nation, and these are our secrets. What's going on, STR Nation? Welcome back to another Short-Term Rental Secrets podcast. I'm your host, Mike Sjogren, here with my main man and brother from another mother, Mr. Emmanuel Pani. What is going on, E?
My brother, how are you today?
I'm good, man. I'm really good.
It is 65 degrees outside. It's beautiful and sunny. And this is just life, man. And I'm super excited. I went to see a house for a potential management client yesterday. And I get reminded every time I do that, man, I get reminded why I love doing what we do so much, and also seeing people realize how much more money they can make from it.
Oh, yeah.
As you're sitting there, you're showing them the data and you're like, okay, this is what we can do. And this is this. And you have a beautiful house. You did a great job. This is what we can get you a month. And I just look at you and they're like, wait, what did you say? I'm like, yeah. Oh, easily, and probably will grow over the years as we keep getting reviews and everything else.
Love it.
I saw her again this morning at the gym with her husband. She's like, can you please tell him? Can you please tell him what you told me yesterday? Right. And this kind of one of those things that you're like, oh my God, I can't believe this is real. So yeah, I'm super stoked and I just love it. I'm just so grateful that this is what we do,
100%. It's funny you say that. So one of the gentlemen that just joined the mastermind a week and a half ago, within a week and a half, he landed his first co-host client. He's about to sign for his second, and he wants me to partner with him on this potential boutique hotel deal in Maine. I was like, man, talk about hitting the ground running. I'm like, awesome. It's a little bit much to chew off because he was looking at the hotel. I'm like, I can coach you through it or I can partner with you on it or something like that. But, he hit the ground running fast. So it's always fun to see that, because it's that idea that oh, this is possible. And then it actually happens. And then it's like, wow, it's real. And then it's on. Yeah. Right. Exactly. It just becomes a game after that.
Yeah, no. And then I don't know what your feeling is, but I can really see a lot of opportunity in the air for 2021 for our industry in general, for the real estate market, and just for kind of going after what you want. I think it's very, I don't know, the year feels very promising, this year ahead. I don't know if I'm just projecting my own personal wishes, but at the same time, that's kind of what life is anyway. So I'm going to go ahead
100%
and keep projecting my own wishes anyways, right? Who cares? So
Exactly. Yeah. Well, I'm excited for today's guest. So funny short story is we actually recorded this podcast last week with Andrew, and I'll go through his bio in just a second. And the file got corrupted through Zoom or whatever. So kudos to Andrew for making some time so that we could re-record it because the episode was so good. I hope we can at least meet that, hopefully exceed how good it was last week. But today we have Andrew Bate with us. He is the co-founder and CEO of Safely.com. It's a tech-enabled data and insurance company that has protected over $40 billion of homeowner liability during their short-term rentals. Before founding Safely, Andrew was a senior researcher at both Emory University's Goizueta Business School and the Wharton School. His team's work was published in the Harvard Business Review, Neuropsychologia, NeuroLeadership, and the Handbook of NeuroLeadership. Prior to that, he was an analyst at McKinsey Co, specializing in revenue management, distribution, and loyalty programs for the firm's travel practice. Andrew's earned his BBA from Emory University and an MBA from the London School of Business, where he attended the Chinese University of Hong Kong on exchange. So without further ado, Andrew, welcome to the podcast.
Okay. Yeah, we were trying to make this better than last time when we start with the microphone not working.
All good. All good. How you doing this morning?
Great. Thank you. It's cold here in Atlanta. Almost record lows for a whole week.
Oh, wow. Okay. I find cold is relative. I'm from Boston, so cold is
right. We're not in Massachusetts. It's pretty warm in comparison, but colder than Florida.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So why don't you take us back to kind of the beginning of what got you into the short-term rental industry and what gave you the idea for Safely?
Yeah, it really came from seeing some of my friends who are really, really smart people. They bought a second house. They loved it. And then they ended up staying there 1 week, 2 weeks of the year, and the rest of the time it was empty. And I just couldn't get my head around how can it's hard enough to buy a first home in our society, and then you get a second home, and that's really, really hard. So you have to be kind of sophisticated and probably smart somehow. And then all of a sudden, you just leave this asset that has so much value, just leave it sitting empty for 48, 50 weeks of the year. And that just hurt me, in my soul. So I started studying. I interviewed hundreds of homeowners and asked them, why are you letting this house sit empty? Why aren't you making some of that money? Why aren't you having that conversation with that P&L statement? Because this is a really nice house. You're not using it. You can get 3 more homes if you could actually monetize this for the same carrying cost. And so it was really learning that the first need that a homeowner has before they're going to monetize that house is they need to feel comfortable with who's staying in their house, and they know that they'll be taken care of if something goes wrong. And so that's how we got into insurance. We do data, we do background checks on each guest who comes through our system, and we have a database of bad guests so that we can make sure that homeowner is feeling comfortable with that internet stranger staying in their house.
Yeah, and I love that. And what is funny is that we recorded the first time the episode before Thanksgiving, and then just after we recorded our episode, I had my little sister brought over a friend of hers, and they have a house on the other side of Florida, and that conversation came up right immediately. And I was like, "Hey, how long do you guys use the house for?" I'm like, I had a guy, and it's like he was saying that like most people ended up using it for like a couple weeks out of the year, and it ends up sitting empty, right? So you told us last time, what is the amount of money that is estimated that is kind of out there in people not using their secondary home? Because I think it's a huge niche of the market for professional Airbnb hosts and want to be like property manager co-hosts. It's a huge niche of the market that if you can really understand how to appeal to these people, you can find yourself unlimited inventory.
That's I think the most amazing thing about this industry is we're so focused. Airbnb is going to go public on the 10th or 11th of the month, and you read their S1 and they talk about about 5 million active homes on their site. They have more listings than that, but somewhere in that number, 5 million. Most of them are outside of the United States. So the world we know is so small when you look at the amount of inventory that's actually available. So there's a company that just launched, they're called Picasso, and they help people buy a fraction of a vacation home. It was started by the former CEO of Zillow and some other people in the real estate industry from Dotloop. And they estimate there are 30 million second homes that are used 6 weeks of the year, but the rest of the time are empty. So 30 million in the US and Europe and UK. And these people are waiting to hear from us. They have it sitting empty, but they want to rent, but rent on their terms. Some won't. I mean, we're not saying it's all that's available to us, but when you look at 30 million, they're just sitting empty, homes that are sitting empty compared to the 5 million or so that are active on Airbnb, this is where the opportunity is, but you have to understand those homeowner needs and overcome them. And it's trust and safety is one, but also How's it going to be clean? Show me that spreadsheet. I didn't even know I could make that much money. I don't even know how the process works.
So I know you've had a lot of conversations for whatever you ended up doing with your company. So if you were in our listener's shoes and you're about to have that conversation, right, having that goal in mind, what are some of the things that you have seen over time that will make sense to kind of their common pain points that you've seen over time, and how can they kind of be ready for what comes to mind is like having like an objection ready from like all my years of like doing sales and cold calling, right? So, but like, how would you prepare somebody? Like, what are some things?
Yeah. I think the most important thing is, first, taking their concerns seriously. If you've been in this industry, you know that, in general, guests are very good. 97% of our reservations don't have an insurance claim. It goes fine. And we know this because we've seen enough, but when you ask a homeowner, like you're going to start renting your home tomorrow and someone's going to come from Airbnb or booking.com into your house, what do you think chances are they'll trash it? And you'll hear numbers like 30%. Probably 1 in 3, they'll just trash my home. It's like, no, it's less than 1% where you're even going to have a problem, and that problem is going to be pretty solvable. Now, we hear about the horrible situations, but really this is a problem, but it's a manageable problem. And just helping them understand that the severity is less than they think, the frequency is less than they think, but you have to take their concerns seriously. This is the barrier, feeling comfortable with someone coming into their house and making sure the house is ready when they're bringing their family there for those 2 or 3 weeks of the year. So that's the first part. But then the second, this industry is old, and a lot of property managers would overcome that objection by saying, well, I've been doing this 30 years. We're fine. Don't worry. Like, we're good. And you're just not taking that homeowner's objection seriously or their concerns seriously. And so you really do want the right insurance policy. Your regular homeowner's policy will cover the home when it's empty, when your friends are staying for free, when you're using it. But the minute you turn it into a business, you're running a little hotel and you need the right insurance coverage. So I just don't try to let the odds work in your favor. You really do need insurance for those catastrophes. And so your job is to help guide them through that process. And it's like, well, you need commercial liability. Here are a few options. Oh, and here's what I do, because I take this seriously. I understand this house is part of your family's retirement plan. You might retire at this house. This is a large percent of your assets, and I'm going to protect that.
I completely agree. And I think one of the things that I tell my students is that's their biggest question when they're getting started is, what are the objections that I'm going to get from the homeowners? And I don't even like saying the word overcoming objections. It's just showing them that you have things under control. And to your point, it's having that plan. So having the right insurance, having the right security cameras, having the noise detection software in the programs, having the Wi-Fi enabled lock. So you have eyes and ears and control over that property 24/7 to put them at ease. And it's not just, we're just going to throw this thing up on Airbnb and you're going to have a ton of strangers in here and you'll make a bunch of money. It's like that. I understand that, but it freaks people out, understandably. So having that right system in place. Now, it's a little off topic, but I always love talking to founders and CEOs. I want to hear more about your journey on actually building safely and what that looked like, right? So you had this idea for this company. You did some research, you interviewed a lot of homeowners. What was that process to go from, it's been what, 10, 15 years since you had that idea. So what's been that journey for you from a founder and a CEO standpoint?
Yeah, it's like most founders and even probably everyone here watching this, we're pretty early. Even now, vacation home rentals, short-term rentals, this is a new phenomenon. Like, just the fact that we're getting deep into it, we feel like we're really late. But no, we're still really early. There's so much opportunity right now, and similar with me at Safely. So really started to study this industry in 2007, and it came because I was working at a consulting firm at McKinsey, And I was in the travel practice, so I only worked with travel clients. And one thing that really struck me, probably more than almost anything else, is that travel companies act more like asset managers than they do what you'd think of as a hospitality company where they're taking care of you and making you cookies and stuff like that. There's an airplane that costs hundreds of millions of dollars, and you have to build a cash flow from that airplane that's moving from one place to the other. So how you price, how you set a loyalty program, how you choose your route structure, that's all about asset utilization. You have a first class cabin because you can increase the asset utilization, the cash flow on that asset. If you build a hotel, you don't really care if it's a Hampton Inn or a Holiday Inn Express. You're buying a piece of land and you need to earn a free cash flow from it. And so just this abhorrence of underutilized assets was what got me really interested in this space. And then of course, seeing these massively underutilized assets, that just hurt. So in business school, I went to London Business School and we did an entrepreneurship summer school. So similar to maybe what a Y Combinator or Techstars would do. And that's where I started to think about, and I was forced to interview all of these homeowners. And so what came out loud and clear is there's a lot of inventory, but it's just sitting empty. And so I asked, well, why? And it's like, no strangers. But then as I interviewed further, homeowners were letting strangers stay, but they trusted them somehow. So they're letting friends of friends stay, or they're letting someone from work stay, or they were putting something in their university alumni magazine or something at their church. So people were staying, they didn't know, but they trusted them somehow. And that's how we got into this solution. How do we find the right mix? I don't care if it's insurance or data or background checks. What would help you trust this guest coming into your house? And we actually started building a marketplace, and we started about a month before Airbnb started. It was called Trusted Guests, where the homeowner could tell us exactly who they trusted, and then we had this algorithm that would only let guests you trust you see that your house exists and then rent it. And we were having problems getting supply. Every marketplace has problems matching supply with demand, and it's a really hard thing. And once you do it well, it works really, really well, like Airbnb and VRBO and all the others. But it's really hard to get started. And we were having a chat with Carl Shepard at HomeAway at the time. He was one of the co-founders, and he said, Andrew, you don't need to build another marketplace. We're fine, and we're really fine, and you're not. Instead, what can you do to make every single reservation just be a little bit safer? Who cares what marketplace it's on? Can you reach into all of the reservations of the world and just make them safer? And so in November of 2013, that's when we switched our model from a marketplace to safely.com as we know it today, where our mission, any reservation that takes place, we just want to infuse a little bit more trust into it so that that the homeowner is more comfortable, it's a friction-free experience, and it's a better and safer experience.
And walk us through that. Like, what is the offering behind Safely? So there's an insurance component, which is different than I've ever seen, the way that you guys structure that. But then there's some other features like on the front end or as the reservation's booked. So kind of walk us through what that offering looks like.
Yeah, absolutely. And it really comes from meeting those two needs that we uncovered and we were discussing before. Who's staying in my house and what happens when something goes wrong? So first we answer that question of who's staying in my house. We verify the guest's identity. We check criminal databases. We check for felonies. We check sex offender lists. We check cherished watch lists. But most importantly is we have a contributory database of bad guests. Those are people who have destroyed homes that we've seen, that our partners have seen, and they should never rent again without the right supervision. So we keep track of that. If we've seen them or our partners have seen them, they're in our list, and we'll let the next property manager know when they show up. Go down the street to the next house and to the next house. So we make sure you're comfortable with who's staying in your house. Then we provide a primary commercial insurance for just the reservation. So it's on a per night or per reservation basis. The guest pays for it. So instead of paying the damage deposit or a damage waiver, the guest is paying this trust and safety fee. And that covers an insurance policy that has three named insureds: the homeowner, you, the property manager, and the guest. So everyone's insured for the specific liability related to that rental. And so that covers damage to the home structure, its contents, and it covers bodily injury. So really, if it was a homeowner's fault, the property manager's fault, or the guest's fault is going to be covered in the under this insurance policy. The guest pays for everything, and it just gets rid of that damage deposit. You don't have to worry about it. You don't have to go after your homeowners to ask them, hey, we had a bad guest. Like, can you, I need to deduct a little bit from what you're going to get paid. You don't have to go after the guest to try to, because then they'll give you a bad review if you try to collect from their damage deposit. So, so it really just covers the things related to that commercial liability, but only when the guest is in the house.
And you have a 3-day turnaround, I believe, on most.
Yeah. For claims that are pretty simple, which is about 95% of them, we're able to pay. If it's under $2,000, we've been averaging just under 2 days to get that claim into your bank account, or the claim payment into your bank account. It's a little bit bigger. It takes a little bit more inspections. We're getting them closed out in 4 days or so. But then bodily injury claims, those can take 8 to 12 months because lawyers get involved and they go back and forth and they make money by the hour. And so they like it when this takes a long time, and we're there for that too.
Yeah. That's wild though. I mean, 2 to 4 days for most claims. I mean, when I think of insurance claims, I think of this painstaking process of weeks or months at a time, where it's like, is it even worth filing it, or do I just eat the money? Yeah, because it's just so much of my time.
But it's the same thing with Airbnb, right? Like when you put a claim through Airbnb, it's not, even if you're completely right, it's never okay, sure. You know what I mean? Like nothing is like that. Not even your Amex. Like when you dispute your Amex, it takes longer than 2 to 3 days, you know?
Right. I mean, we've seen thousands and thousands of claims. And so we have a good feeling for what's a legitimate claim and what's not. And look, you're in business and cash flow's pretty important. And our customers pay a premium for this product. They expect it to be handled well. And that's part of the reason why there's such an interesting opportunity in this insurance industry is because of this, this infrastructure they've built, and coming at this from not being an insurance person has been, I think, really helpful. Like, what do customers want? Well, all right, let's give it to them. And do the economics work? Yes. Then let's make sure everyone's taken care of. Like, you're taking care of your guests. We need to be taking care of you.
Yeah. I just want to throw one quick thing in before, just while we're on this topic, for like something tactical, like best practice for hosts is obviously leverage safely because it's a great product. But then I would think, like, as part of that, like in your Airbnb listing or other OTA listings or direct website, in the house rules or whatever, put in there like, hey, we run our guests through a background check. And it's almost like having that like ADT security sign on the front of your house. Like, it's going to deter those people from the get-go from even attempting to book your place.
Exactly. And we see that, a few people skip out. We're less, where we find that the highest risk guests are the ones who are most worried is when they know that we're searching a database of bad guests. Those are the ones you really have to be careful of, because I mean, if you have enough reservations, you've seen them. Like, they come planning to party and they come planning to cause damage, and they know that the ROI, your $250 average daily rate, like, that's the best deal they're going to have. Like, way cheaper per person than going to the movies or crashing go-karts or whatever. Like, this is a hobby, and there are these are the people we really, really need to keep out.
So, Andrew, what would you say if you had to, so of all the claims you guys kind of go through, right? What percentage is what you just kind of talked about? Like, what percentage of, kind of to educate also, right? Like, what the percentage in reality of your claims is actually party related? What is just accidental things? Like, how many fires have you guys covered? Like, what's the spectrum there?
Yeah, really, it falls into about a third, and a third. So about a third of all of our claims, about 1% of reservations have like a real insurance claim. Like, an accident happened. This is what insurance is for. Like, accidents happen. Sometimes they're really big accidents. It could be that fire. It could be someone slips and falls. It could be, a balcony breaks, things like that. Like those are real, they're accidents, and so that's what insurance is for. The next third are what we call vacation brain, where people are, they're very smart people, I'm sure, in real life, but somehow they don't think very well in your home. They think that they can hold onto the towel rack and it'll support their weight. They think they don't need to turn off the bathtub when the bathtub's full. They don't know how to use your stove. The garbage disposal somehow breaks every 10th guest or so. Like it's just the brain is being turned off. They're out of their environment and they're doing things. They're certainly not intentional, but pretty preventable. But still, that should be covered. You're the homeowner, you're the property manager. You went there, you didn't cause it, and these are things that need to be fixed. And so that's about a third. But then the last third are the parties, the intentional acts. People sneaking a pet into the house, people letting their children be really destructive, like not just children being children, but you've seen them, children being like monsters, and then having the parties, getting 40 people into a 2-bedroom condo, things like that. And that's about a third. Those are the ones we're trying to really eliminate, is through the screening up front. We love the noise devices. Noise Aware is fantastic. Minute, Party Squasher, we love that too. But really, that's the biggest opportunity. How can we motivate these high-risk guests to make good decisions? And instead of bringing the whole bar when it closes at 2:00, they bring them to your house instead. How do you get them to go to someone else's house to make those guests feel more franchised into the end result here?
Yeah. So what would you say are some good practices that people can put in place to kind of help themselves kind of put checks and balances in place to then help them if a claim does happen, right? So like, what is good things? For example, like we do the ring, right? So all of those things, right? So you can actually have evidence. I assume evidence is always good. But what are some other things that you would say you should put this in your?
Yeah, and one comment about the ring, Airbnb is very anti-camera that's not disclosed. So there's a place in your listing or in your account to disclose those cameras. Make sure you do that, because if you are filing a claim with Airbnb and you're like, hey, I have a camera from inside the house, and it's not, well, first of all, inside the house isn't cool with them ever, but you show that as your evidence. Now you're in far more trouble than the guest was. So be careful there. But yeah, love the ring, love the noise detection devices. It's the other thing is, as you're making an insurance claim, sometimes those bigger claims, like things are completely destroyed. It's like there used to be a couch there and there's not a couch there anymore, or there used to be a chandelier and the chandelier's not there, and it's really hard. And what makes things easier is if you just take regular inventory of what's in your house. So it's very easy to say, hey, there was a chandelier here and now there's not. Like it doesn't have to be perfect, but just showing the pre-state versus the end state really avoids a lot of questions and a lot of scrutiny, because it's always someone's interpretation as to what happened as they're looking at an insurance claim. Getting really, I think, the attitude of assuming guests are not inherently bad. Like they want to make good decisions. They're just in a situation, peer pressure, maybe a little bit too much to drink, things like that. Like things sometimes slip away from the guests. And so you want to give them the tools to empower them. That's why I do like the in-stay notifications that a noise detection device can do. It's like, oh, like I'm not happy with how things are going in this rental. My friends are stupid. They're doing horrible things. But that reminder that you are in charge, I really like that, because they will make the good decisions sometimes. Others won't, but enough want to make good decisions. And then of course, getting this claim in as quickly as possible. One unique part of our industry is, we have, like, if you're doing your job well, you have 80% occupancy, and you have a guest checking out at 10 a.m. and another one coming in at 4 o'clock. And it's really hard to tie the loss to a specific reservation. So the longer you wait, it just adds a little bit more murkiness into the process. Whether you're filing a claim with Airbnb and they won't even let you file a claim after the next guest has arrived, and that's really hard to do if that house is 5 hours away from you. One gets checked out at 10, the next is at 4. Your cleaning team didn't tell you. Like, there's no way you can file a claim. So trying to understand that damage as quickly as possible.
Yeah. And I think that it kind of like the underlining kind of message of this whole podcast is like, it's very helpful, as we've been saying for a long time now, is to look at this as a business, right? So like, if you're submitting a claim at work for something and you're working for somebody else, there is always a timeline, right? So you got to establish yourself and give yourself the timelines, just as, big boss is looking behind you, you're the boss now, and you kind of have to do it. Because at the same time, like, people are inherently good. I agree. That's how I believe, and that's how I see it. But also, people are inherently prone to take care of themselves. So unless you really like have, and putting a claim in doesn't make you a bad person, doesn't make you a bad host. You also have to take care of what's yours, what you worked for, right? And I think it's very important for you to understand that, as to, you don't feel bad for submitting a claim. Like, it's a business. Like, you're not saying, hey, you Carlos or you John are a bad person. You're just saying, whatever the thing happened, I gave you a product. I gave you, is if you go to Avis and you rent a car, right? The seats were clean. The seats have your daughter's shiny lipstick on it now. I know she's 7, but I can't give this to another family like this, right? So really separating you as a host and the business of running your property and making sure the property is upkept.
Right. And we look at insurance like that's an instrument you have. Like, you should be calling it. We hate this mentality that you have a car insurance policy and like you're afraid to call State Farm because then your rates will go up. And some people should have their rates go up. Like, there are horrible drivers out there and they should not pay the same as other people. But in general, like, bad things happen, and you shouldn't be worried about using your insurance product, your insurance policy. For example, we'll call property managers who aren't filing claims, because we get really expensive if you're not filing any claims. We know how many claims you should be having, and if you're not in that range, you're not using this program the way it was built, and now you're probably paying a little too much, but you're also still suffering some of those operational headaches. If you're not using this new pool of money to cover these bad stays, and so we want all of our customers to use us an average amount. Too much is a little too much, but 0 is not okay either. We want it to be, we want to be there when you need us, and make that claim process as easy as possible.
No, and that's great, right? Like, if you have check and balances in place, actually using them. And I think that's one of the things that gets hard as you grow and scale, is that you'll revert back sometimes. And I know I'm guilty of this. I revert back to doing things the old way just because I'm in a time crunch, and it's going to be faster for me to do it how I've always done it, rather than getting myself through the process of doing something new, even if I know that that's what I'm supposed to do. Yeah. Right. So like, it's also like really like doing it. And I'm kind of saying this out loud mostly for myself to remember as I go through the week. But yeah, that's awesome.
I think one thing I want to bring up that we talked about last week that I think is great, and I think you said it was in the works, was a big concern that a lot of hosts have had, especially in the last 12 months, was coming up with some type of cancellation insurance for hosts and guests, where, call it from March through late May of 2020, if you were on Airbnb and somebody wanted to cancel, they just approved the cancellation, you were out of money for 2-3 months. And it was super frustrating for hosts, and felt somewhat abandoned from a lot of the OTAs like Airbnb and whatever. And you guys are working on some type of policy for that, where guests can opt in for some type of cancellation insurance, so that, if they decide to cancel, they've bought that insurance and we get paid out and they're covered.
You got it. The thing that's most frustrating to me is you set your rates, and they're refundable, they're non-cancelable. However you set them, that's how you set them. You and the guest agreed to those terms. And for someone to come in and say those terms aren't, like, the terms everyone agreed to aren't the terms, that really bothers me. The other thing that I hate doing is, again, you're in the hospitality industry. You're here to help, your guests, to be nice, things like that. And then when they come to you and say, my grandma died, or my son is sick, or something like this, you feel horrible. But at the same time, like you were saying, you have a business to run, and like, your family depends on this income that you're doing. Like, this is your livelihood. And for someone to just take away a reservation at the last minute, because a tragedy happens, I mean, it's horrible, but now you have your own tragedy. And so we just love having the option of the guest purchasing this trip cancellation or trip protection program, because now it's on them. We all know that bad things happen in this world. And so they were given an option. It costs 7%, 8% of the total reservation value. And then there are some really good cancellation terms. And if you can't make it for a very legitimate reason, you get your money back. But you as a property manager still get paid. And so you've solved that problem. But what I love the most is it takes you out of that position of saying, well, it's fine if this person dies, but it's not fine if you lose your job. You're the arbiter of what a bad situation is or not. And so that's why I love pushing this responsibility off to the guest. And so we were going to launch a trip cancellation program in January. And then as we were starting to see COVID roll out, it was like we were seeing a lot of trip cancellation products not perform. So we stepped back, and we were like, let's look at this. Like, are we really covering what needs to be covered? So we just launched it a month ago. So we are covering, a lot of COVID-related cancellation causes. It's ready to go. It's a really solid product, but we did have to sit back and retool it, because our world's different now than it was before. But I just love pushing this decision off to the guest.
And I love that. And I feel like last week we had Adam Knight, who's a 25-year hotel veteran, and talked about the lessons that we can learn from hotels and other things. And trip cancellation insurance is not a new concept. It's been around in other industries, from, travel agencies and airlines and hotels and things like that. And it's just, okay, how can we pull that in to put us on par and level up the industry to, again, create that comfort level of, yes, you can purchase this and protect yourself, or if you don't, these are the consequences. Like, if you do have to cancel, it is not refundable, right? It's just, it's simple.
And the traditional travel world has so much more access to different rate categories. You're on an airplane, there are 100 different ticket prices there. You post your rates, and there's one rate and one cancellation term. If you want a cancelable flight on Delta, you can get it. And that's in its own, it meets the traveler's cancellation needs. We don't have that. We've got a rate, and we can do a little bit with that rate, but not a lot. And so there's so many more opportunities in that more mature hospitality world.
Yeah,
I love that.
but also I think people are used to it, right? So as Airbnb gets more mainstream, I think as hosts, is our job to kind of keep those things that are in our favor, that people have been getting used to and are used to, right? Like, you call Delta, you want to cancel, they're hey, you get a credit if you want, but it's not like you called them and it's like, how can you do this to me? Like, nobody, that person at Delta does not care. They're like, sorry, this is just our policy, right? So it's a business, guys. It's just a business.
Well, before we wrap up with our final question, Andrew, I just want to first say thank you again for coming back on here and sharing all of your knowledge with us. And I want to acknowledge you and all the blood, sweat, and tears that you've put into Safely and into this industry. As a startup, as a founder, as a CEO, I can totally relate to all of those long days and late nights and trial and error and figure things out. And I want to commend you for that and thank you for that. And so the final question that we like to ask all of our guests is, and I'm very curious to hear this from your perspective, is what is the number one secret to success in short-term rentals?
Yeah, number one secret, man. I mean, I love that we uncovered that there's like a massive, massive world just sitting out there waiting for us. But to me, I think the secret is once you're running your business, it's to look at the best practices from the travel industry, the established travel industry. Like hotels used to be like us. You know, Holiday Inns were popping up along the interstates, and then the franchise model started, and then there started to be big brands and consolidated brands, and then technology came, the internet came, and they figured it all out. And so we can almost look 20 years ahead, in some areas, and see what does our business look like. It's almost how eBay, when it started, it was people selling Pez dispensers, but now there are all these like power sellers, and eBay is completely different. We're seeing this transition in our industry. So I think we have this unique opportunity to look 10, 20 years into the future, use a channel manager, get help with your revenue management, get help with trust and safety, of course, but like really optimize pricing and distribution, technology to make that guest experience better, and to improve your operations. They're all out there. They might be a little early for short-term rentals, but they're there. And you have all the tools that these massive hospitality players have, and just start to leverage them, or at least use it as a thought starter, or a goal of where you want to be or where you can be with the right amount of tweaking and thinking.
Absolutely. And where can folks find out more about you and Safely?
Yeah, well, we're at safely.com, and so just come on by. You can get a quote for our services, depending on your occupancy, number of reservations, number of homes. We've integrated with a lot of the major property management systems. So if you're there, it's really easy to onboard us, or for us to onboard you, however you want to call it. So just come to our website. You can send me an email, andrew@safely.com, ANDREW, and safely.com. We have a chat bot. We're pretty responsive during the business day. And yeah, just come with all your questions. We'd love to just hear about your business and what your concerns are, and because our job is to solve that. We're pro host. We're not here for the guest. We want to make sure the right guests come, but we're here for hosts. We've started to help homeowners feel comfortable with this whole booking process, and so I'd love to just hear from you and tell me what else you're looking for, because maybe we can build it too.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Andrew.
And thank you again for being on. Again, truly appreciate you. Wishing you all the best, and looking forward to staying connected with you in 2021 and beyond.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Awesome.
All right. Take care. Hey, STR Nation, if you enjoyed this episode, please make sure to hit that subscribe button and leave us a review. And in the comments, let us know what topics you want us to cover on upcoming episodes, and we'll make sure to get that in the books for you. And if you really want to learn how to launch, automate, and scale your short-term rental business, if you want to go deeper, then check out our free masterclass at strsecrets.com.